Welcome back to the 343 podcast presented by Sportycast. I am your host AF. Thanks for joining us again. Today we have quite a cool show lined up, and once again I'm joined by Jason Ronnie, our resident all things football correspondent, Wasim Ebrahim, and then making his first appearance on the 343 podcast is Mubeen Ahmed. Welcome, guys.
How's it, man?
I'm the one making the show cool today.
Always. So, as we did in the first episode, we had a bit of an icebreaker for first timers on the show. So, Mubeen, you are up. My question to you is, if you were a professional footballer, which era would you have wanted to play in and why?
I'd probably say the 90s, between 90 and 2000, mainly because that's when I started watching football, mid-90s, and being an ardent United supporter, that treble winning season and the Champions League final in Munich, or against Munich rather, I think that sort of instilled more passion in me to watch the game and support United. So probably between the 90s and 2000, I would have wanted to play.
Okay, it's interesting you mentioning those words, because if you've seen this man play, you would have fit right in with those Brazilian Samba Kings. What a legend. Anyways, we'll move on to our recent headlines. With 1 week left in the transfer window, which transfer rumors are gaining most traction? Jason, do you want to start us off over there?
Yeah, no, for sure. I can do that. So yeah, probably the most notable one now would be Harry Kane, saying that he's going to be staying and he would probably only leave in the summer. I think it's not coming as a shock. He's under quite a strict contract there. He had signed a 6-year deal, an extension in 2018. So for him to negotiate on his own to actually get out of that contract, that would be hard. And I think Daniel Levy was just knowing that he had just put the brakes on whatever move Harry Kane thought he could potentially get. So he's staying. I think one of the big shocks as well is that Kylian Mbappe, I think Leonardo, the sporting director, just confirmed that Kylian has mentioned to them that he actually wants to leave. Why? I'm really not sure. He's now got the opportunity to play with my favorite player of all time. I think maybe everybody else's favorite player. So yeah, I think it's just he's caught now because Neymar, Messi rekindling that bromance that they had at Barca. Maybe he just wants to chart his own path. It is a bit silly, but also at the same time, PSG understand that next season he'd leave for free. So if you can cash in now and get upwards of 150, 160, then I think it's very good business. So yeah, those are the two that stood out for me. There are a whole lot more, and I'm sure all the other guys.
Yeah, it's weird that they're saying no to 160 mil. I mean, in January you can sign for any club for free. So I mean, 160 mil, that's more than enough, I think, for Kylian Mbappe. I mean, like it's better than getting him for nothing in January.
Yeah. The problem is that when they bought him in 2018 or 2017, it was they spent like 180 million, so they want to recoup what they paid basically. So I think it's more principle of saying you're offering 160, but he's worth 180, or that is what we valued him at when we bought him. So give us what we paid, or else you can take him for free, but take him next year and not now. So I think with PSG also, they don't need money. So I think that it comes down to a battle of power also, who has the biggest, Real Madrid or PSG.
Agreed. I also think sorry, Jason, I think this last season or season and a half, there's been an underlying sort of, I don't know if environment is the right word, where I think a lot of players aren't signing contract extension, and they're leaving either on a free or within the last year or 6 months of their contracts, and clubs are picking them up on the cheap. So I think we're seeing a shift into that sort of dimension with players, and not just any players, you know, the top tier guys. So that's quite interesting as well.
Jason, what do you say?
Yeah, no. I was just going to add that I think in Kylian Mbappe's contract as well, they still owe Monaco like a sell-on fee as well. So I think PSG are trying to milk as much as they get, because I think from upwards of 160 to between 180 mil, they have to give Monaco somewhere like 35 million. So obviously letting him go on the free, it's not going to help, because I think that fee might, I'm not too sure with like the sell-on clauses and that stuff, but you'd want to get that money and then give it off, then have to give it out of your own. I mean, it's still yours, but you'd obviously like to get it in and then get it out. Something like that.
Definitely. It's going to be interesting to see what happens over the next week, because Mbappe looks like he's determined to push that move through to Madrid. And if that happens, would Cristiano Ronaldo move to PSG? Wasim, what do you have for us?
I think Ronaldo's been trying to get a move. There's been PSG that's been rumored. There's been Man City that's been rumored as well. But I don't think they quite are interested. In Man City's case, I think they'd only be interested if they could get him from Juve on a free transfer, which Juve are at the moment not happy with, because he's got a contract with him. So they're saying, you know, if you want him, you can take him, but, you know, pay us a transfer fee. And I think it's in the region of 30 million that they would then want for him. So in the case of Man City, I think they're probably going to lean on not signing Ronaldo or not going for him because of the fee. And then with PSG, I think it depends when Ronaldo leaves and how much time PSG have to get a replacement. Because if Mbappe goes to Real Madrid, then do they have enough time to sort of work out things with Ronaldo or get another player? I know there were talk of looking at Richarlison. So it depends who they have lined up as the replacement for Mbappe if he should leave. So Ronaldo, I think if you are a betting man, rather lean on him staying at Juve. I think that's the more likely outcome at this stage.
Yeah, I've seen Allegri and Nedved both coming out and saying that no, they've spoken to him. They've basically decided that he's going to stay at Juventus. But I mean, over the weekend, he asked to be left out of the starting lineup because he was looking for a solution. So I mean, if you're saying if the coaches and the director is saying one thing, but the player wants something else, forcing him to stay, I don't think you'll end up like being in the right frame of mind going forward. So yeah, it's a touchy subject, because him going to Man City as well, there's that whole like aspect of him turning on the United fans, and yeah, that relationship's not going to go down well. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting next six to 7 days. See how that pans out. Moving on to like Chelsea. I read this morning that Kurt Zouma might be going to West Ham for 30 mil. That leaves up a space in defense. Wasim, who are they looking at to replace him with?
Yeah, they're looking at Jules Koundé from Seville. He's quite a highly rated centre-back, and he's done well. He made the France squad for the Euros, and so he'd be an ideal replacement. And I think someone who they feel is an upgrade on Kurt Zouma would go to West Ham, because Zouma never really established himself as a first choice centre-back at Chelsea. So I think it would be Koundé replacing Zouma in terms of Chelsea's centre-backs.
Yeah, he looked good whenever he goes on loan, and I know that he's never been dropped from the France team. He's always been in and around the France squad, so it's not like he's a bad player. And last season, I think he actually did quite well. There was a period of like 4 to 5 weeks when he was constantly first team. So he's not a bad player. He just probably like he doesn't buy into Tuchel's plans or his philosophy moving forward.
Yeah. Also on that, I think it would be a good move for him. I think West Ham are showing quite a lot of promise, and I think what it showed last year as well when last season when Lingard was there, they giving a platform for these guys that are at the so-called top six, who are not really featuring to actually come to them and be a star, play consistent football. I mean, Kurt Zuma's still very young, so all he has to do is establish a good season where he plays consistently. Like you were saying, he's in that fringes for that French national team. So why not do that? Get your game time, potentially force a move in with, I think, France centre back starting to get a bit old now as well. So with that young crop, you would then establish yourself as one of the experienced centre backs, and then also just to play consistent European football. So yeah, I think it would be a good move.
Yeah, enough. It's going to be.
I would be for it if I.
Yeah. Cool. Mubeen, what transfer news do you have for us today?
Yeah, well, been following the Eduardo Camavinga, a bit of a tongue twister there, and the Sal Niguez issue. Let me start with Sal. They are, look, I think all of us, we tend to follow Fabrizio, the main man, in terms of transfers and when word does get out. So he has indicated that there has been two clubs that are trying to move for Sal. One of them being United, and the other one being Chelsea. Now it's I don't know. Chelsea, there seems to be a loan option, and then obviously with a buying clause maybe next season, whereas United probably want to buy him out up front. I don't know. For me, both teams maybe don't need him. I think Chelsea have an established midfield that got players, and I think they probably need to offload one or two if they're going to sign him. Whereas United as well, if they do sign him, what happens to the likes of Donny van der Beek, for example, who signed last season, who hasn't even got a look in last season, neither the first couple of games of the season. So if he does come, does Donny leave? I mean, where does he leave the likes of Matic? Does he leave? And I think if I were in charge of transfer at United, I'd probably be prioritizing someone like Camavinga, who is an out-and-out defensive midfielder, who is a player that United is lacking. So yeah, I'd be looking at that, and I think Rennes are going to sell him because this is his last year of his contract, and it doesn't look like he's going to be extending his contract, and they wouldn't want him to leave on a free. So I think if he does leave, there's probably a 35 million pound transfer fee involved there.
Yeah, no, like I'm echoing the fact that it just doesn't make sense for United to sign somebody like Saul. I mean, like you said, Tony, he's one of the best midfielders at our club. Somehow can't find a way into that first team. So, I mean, you have Jesse Lingard, Juan Mata, Donny van der Beek. They are all players out on the fringes, and majority of the time it's Fred or McTominay that gets a start. So, like the Saul transfer for me, it really doesn't make much sense. But yeah, that's the end of our transfer news. Moving on to the Premier League discussion. Arsenal haven't really had the best start of the season. There's so many players injured. Not actually sure what's happening in Arteta's mind at the moment. But Jason, seeing that you are a diehard Gunner, give us some intel.
Yeah, I hold that crown with a very heavy heart, a diehard Gunner. It feels like I'm going to die very soon watching Arsenal. It's been very frustrating, and no transition period has ever been easy for any club. I think what we have is a very fickle fan base. We've got horrible luck. Like you mentioned, we've got so many first team players out, guys that could potentially give us something different to what we're seeing right now and what we saw in the first two games. I think Arteta's trying to build into something, and that's all good and well. Unfortunately, we've been building for a very long time, and give us an FA Cup every 1 or 2 years is fine. But I think every Arsenal fan deep down just wants to be competing again. Just wants to be in that top 4 mix, you know. I think all of us want that excitement of, okay, be on top of the log up until February, March, fall out, you know, once the snow hits, the youngsters get injured, and then suddenly Man United comes through, Chelsea, Liverpool, all those. So it is a bit frustrating to watch at this time. When I look at the long picture, I can see what wants to be implemented and what his focus is. But unfortunately, in this business, we do need some short-term success as well. And it seems like it's not going to happen anytime soon. So I'll have to just absorb all the stick that I'm getting from all these fans. I think everybody knows of some sort of meme that's been made about Arsenal now. It's banter, it's all of those things. It's very frustrating. It's very odd that my girlfriend's a Man United fan and she's even able to banter me off. Like, I mean, we were once in the same position, if not last season, where the transitional period wasn't good, and she's just running away with it. So yeah, it's not nice, and it's really not exciting to watch. I mean, now we have Man City the weekend. It's really not going to get any better. So
It's
a
weird one though, because it's not like Arteta is a bad manager.
Yeah, no, 100%.
It's like somehow his tactics aren't coming across as well as you would think it should be, or the players aren't really buying into it the way they should.
Yeah, I think there's definitely been glimpses in his time here. There's been games where I thought, okay, look, if we just persist with this sort of style of play, then it should work. But I think maybe he's overthought a few things. I think maybe he's persisted with a few guys that shouldn't really be there. And maybe it's not all him. Maybe it's the technical director, Edu, who's not shipped off players that should have been shipped off. Maybe he's not decreased the wage bill. One thing that is a concern for me is we have many guys that are just terminating contracts because nobody wants to take them. They're on such high wages, but when you put them on the field, the output of what we're giving them, it's really not there. So now you have a guy like Sead Kolasinac as to actually terminate his contract. Uzil, which still, I think to this day, hurts me the most that we had to let go of somebody like that. Mustafi, we have William that could potentially be out before this window's done, and there's no money coming in. So it is a tad bit frustrating, and maybe all of the blame shouldn't be put on Arteta. Maybe the structure that we have is maybe a tad bit rotten. And look, only time will tell. But for now, we're just cutting a very frustrating picture, and yeah, it's not going to get any easier.
I hope it does get. Go ahead, Mubeen.
No, I said I understand now why Ziad Parker, gave a last-minute apology not to appear on today's episode.
I actually think this was very well coordinated. Yeah.
I think he left you to answer the tough questions for Arsenal. Yeah. But I mean, you should be getting quite a few followers there on Instagram. I mean, word on the street is you look a bit like Bruno Fernandes and Mo Salah, in a mashup between the two of them.
Look, that is all good and well, but those followers haven't increased. Neither have I got any promotional content. So yeah, I actually don't know what's happening. Let's look like them and to not get anything.
Let's hope that changes after today's episode.
Yo, let's really hope so, man.
Cool. So some teams have gotten off to great starts, and like we just spoke about Arsenal, some teams have gotten off to bad starts. They've struggled to get the key in the ignition. And so Wasim, what teams have stood out for you? Which teams have underperformed? What's been your review of the first 2 game weeks?
Look, I think if we take away the big sides, like Liverpool have done very well since Van Dijk has been back, and Chelsea have done well. They've started the season well. So if you take away those 2 teams who've done fairly well, I think 2 teams who've gone so far under the goals against Leicester, 4 goals against Newcastle, and they top of the league, and smiling all the way to the top where they left off last season. So they've been, for me, the standout team thus far. They've been very good. Brighton have also been good in that they've won their games. And last season, they were always playing well, but they never got the results. They stayed in the bottom 5 for so long. when they play well, I remember the Man United game where they absolutely outplayed Man United. They hit the post 5 times. They ended up losing the game 3-2 with a last-minute penalty. But if you watch the game, Brighton actually created so many chances and should have won. So I think they've now actually gone away from that. And this season they've started and actually won games that they should have. And I think the brand of football is also good to watch. And so they're a good team. And then for the teams that have not really done well for me has been my very own team, Newcastle. I think we've had a sort of an easier opening in terms of West Ham and Aston Villa, but we've gotten 0 points to show. You look at the fixture list, you always look out for the tough games, and those are still coming. And then just also Crystal Palace, they out of the League Cup last night, and they've also drawn against Brentford and drawn against they've drawn against Brentford in the second game, and they lost the first game. So they also seem to have started very slowly under Patrick Vieira. He was a great player, and it's going to be interesting to see if he's going to be able to lift them, because his managerial record isn't that great. So is he going to be able to turn it around, or is this just a bad start? But it's something that he's going to turn around at a later stage. So it's going to be interesting. But I think those are my teams who've done well and not done so well thus far.
Thanks for that. Speaking about the teams that have done well, Mubeen, what are your thoughts on the traditional top 6?
Yeah, look, the first 2 game weeks, I think City, Liverpool, obviously flexing their muscle, getting the points there. United, good start in the first game week, and then same old. Like last season, where they struggled to pick up points against the so-called, bottom half or bottom 8 club like Southampton. And if we don't pick up points against those teams on the road, we're not going to win a title. And that is the end all and be all of the story. So Liverpool look good for their money. I think Man City look good for their money. I think there's still a signing in there. As much as I hate to say it, I feel there's a chance that Ronaldo could possibly move there, and that's why I shook my head when Jason said that Messi is the greatest of all time. In my opinion, I think it's Ronaldo, and it's not a biased opinion. But if he were to move to City, I think I would lose just a bit of respect
Only a
for
bit.
him. Only a bit. I still think if you put that aside, I still think for me he's the greatest of all time. He's just a complete athlete, and still to do it at the age he is right now, 37, 38, it's something that's unbelievable. And then Chelsea, I think in our group chat I mentioned before this season, I think Chelsea is going to take the title this season, and with them signing Lukaku, I think they now have a complete team. They might still get a centre back in Jules Kounde, and that will just solidify them completely. They are still a bit weak. Thiago's an aging defender, so if they get someone like Jules Kounde, that just solidifies them completely. So they've got a solid defense, solid midfield, and they've got a guy up front that can bag them 25, 30 goals in all competitions. So for me, they look good. They're my favorites to win the title. And then, you look at Spurs and Arsenal. Let me start with Spurs. Obviously, Kane announcing now he's going to stay. I don't see them finishing the top 4. I still think they'll be around 5 or 6. There's not, the team can't be based around just Harry Kane and Son. There's got to be additions and quality additions of that if they want to compete, and that's not happening. If we're going to move further down the table, number 6, Arsenal. Again, look, it's something not gelling, as Jason said, whether it's coming from up top at a board level or in the dressing room by the coach, players not buying into the philosophy of Mikel Arteta, we don't know, but I also don't think there's a leader in the change room. There's no one, you look at and say, okay, that is an out and out captain, club captain. I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Xhaka is the captain now, but it's someone that was meant to leave the club, not too long ago. And then they made Aubameyang captain for a short stint. He's also looks like he's on the verge of wanting to leave, or they want to sell him. So there's no one you can look at Arsenal and say, that's the leader, that's the person we're going to build the team around as well, and that's the person who's going to take charge and ignite the flame amongst those youngsters, and assist Arteta in wanting to gain an ethos or a style of playing. So yeah, I don't know if I can I think Chelsea will take the league, and then maybe United second, Liverpool third, City fourth.
Oh, City fourth, hectic.
City fourth.
Even with 100 more
if Ronaldo doesn't end up going there.
I in my personal opinion, I still think City will take the league this year, but Lukaku's been so good, and I don't know, is this a purple patch? Can he be consistent? Can he perform against all the top teams? I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But moving on to FPL. Our picks came off quite well for the past two game weeks, hasn't it? Like Mikel Antonio, Danny Ings. I mean, it's picks like that we followed our gut. We knew that they're gonna come through for us. And Danny Ings 2 goals in 2 games, and I think Antonio's got what, 3 goals as well.
He's got
I think
4 goals already. So
he scored 1 in the first game, and he got a brace or a hat-trick in a brace.
I think it was a brace, But
a brace, So
our team's done well. Do you guys have anything to contribute on our team?
Look, I think sorry Jason, let me just
go for it, man.
I think with FPL, I think I don't want to say the main aim, but if you can sort of gauge yourself closer to the game week average, then you're doing quite well. And I think we've done that now in the first 2 game weeks. And you've got to have that differential player, or at least 2 players, where you back that player to gain points that most other managers don't have, and that obviously makes the difference in you sort of leapfrogging other managers. So I think we've done that. We've backed someone like Gray from Everton. I don't think a lot of people started Antonio in the first game either. I think it was more Ings and Calvert-Lewin. So that's just my opinion.
So I was just gonna get onto, like, when we had first picked our team and we discussed with most of the viewers, we were saying that we were gonna stack our midfield, right? And I think that bore some good fruit in that first game week. I think we had Salah, we had Bruno Fernandes, we had Son, all very good picks. And then, like Mubeen just mentioned, now those wild ones sometimes do pay off, and sometimes they actually won't, and that is the frustrating thing about FPL. But I think we've stuck to more of the guys that we were almost certain of that would at least play. We had stuck to guys that had good preseasons, and I was actually reading a little bit from Antonio after the game. I think it was Monday night that they played. He was saying that, like, when he was younger, he would just eat whatever he'd want to, just do whatever he wanted to. But now he seems to have changed that. He's now looked at his diet. He's looked at what he normally does before the game, after the game, and now that puts him into a potential bracket where we can almost guarantee at least something's going to happen, because everything goes through him. And it says quite a bit, because Antonio was never an out-and-out striker. So what he's doing now shows that he's worked well with Moyes. They have a system that's implemented that, okay, we'd have fast wingers, we have Benrahma, we have Jared Bowen, we have Antonio, who's also no slouch when it comes to a 1v1 race. So guys like that, I think guys like that help. And this next game week now, obviously being the one before international break, it's also one before the transfer window actually closes. So it is an exciting time to be an FPL manager, just to see what's going to happen, what's going to be finalized, and then have a good week and a half to actually contemplate rather what we're going to do going game week 4 onwards and stuff like that. So yeah, I think our team has done very well, and I mean that's what's going to happen when 5 guys pick a team instead of 1.
And that brings me to my next question. You were speaking about the transfer window ending next week. To use the wildcard or to not use the wildcard?
Ooh, that is interesting. I've been following quite a bit online, and quite a few people have activated already. For me personally, I'm gonna at least wait it out a bit more. I think when I set my team out, I'd set for at least 3 to 4 game weeks. So if I then use the wildcard now, it means that what I did previously isn't gonna work, and that will just cause me to question all of my judgment previously. So I think we look at maybe from game week 7 on. I think that would be an acceptable time for me personally to actually look at that wildcard and say, okay, this is what's going wrong. Yeah, so also just like Mubeen says, if you're hitting above average, then I don't think there's really need to really tinker with anything. I think people get those what is it, the knee jerk changes. That's what it is. Where they feel that they just need to make it because somebody's performing. But yeah, I think this is a game of patience. So wait it out a bit and then just actually see, because then you'll start questioning all of the decisions you make, because now you have to change to this one, and then it's going to be a miserable season, eh?
Yeah, and
so that's my bit on wild.
You'll always look back and like what if I didn't do that? Like I could have kept it. It's always that what if. It's too late by then. So with some tasty fixtures coming up this weekend, we have Man City versus Arsenal, we have Liverpool versus Chelsea. How do fixtures of that magnitude impact the picks for an FPL player? I'm just gonna put that out there, and you guys can decide who wants to answer it.
I think in those games, it's always a bit of sometimes, not always the case, but sometimes you get big games early in the season, then both teams sort of play not to lose. And I think that needs to be taken into account, because if you've got a midfielder who is expensive like Salah, for example, or you've got a striker like Lukaku, it's a risk to play them or spend money on them, transfer them in for such a big game, because what if it ends up being one of those games where it's tight and both teams sort of happy to go with a 0-0 or 1-1 and take the point and not lose, and keep the momentum that you've built up until that point. So I think when it comes to a big fixture like this, if you have the player, keep him. But if you don't have a certain player, don't transfer him now. That's my view on it. Always try and wait till all the big fixture or these big fixtures are gone, and then you transfer them in where they can have an instant impact. Because the chances are you might make 2 changes, 3 changes, maybe cost you -4 points. You bring in Lukaku, but then Liverpool Chelsea ends up being a 0-0 because both teams are so adamant not to lose. So it's a tricky one, but I think go on the safe side of things for now.
Makes sense here. And earlier on, Jason mentioned knee-jerk reactions. I mean, the thing that I think he's sitting top of our Sporticos admin log, and I mean he capped all of us basically over this past weekend. So I hope none of us are going to be doing any knee-jerk reactions just to catch up with him, because he's literally just like pulled away from us. But yeah, it's all in good fun, and yeah, we enjoy it. But yeah, that's Jason. You want to say something?
Yeah, I was actually just gonna say that there shouldn't be any rush to make changes. Knowing me and knowing my history, a good start to the season, and then bam, almost like Everton last season. People were touting them for the champions, but they're gonna fumble the bag. Hopefully, it's not the case, and maybe this is like one of those cases where the reverse psychology works. But yeah, like you said.
Yeah, but that's our show, and that's a wrap on episode 2 on 343 podcast. Don't forget to follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Sportycast, and like, share, and subscribe on our YouTube channel. You can subscribe to our podcast as well. I think last week we just had it on, or the week before we just had it on Google and Spotify. We'll try to upload it to those 2 platforms once again, and I'll put the descriptions in the YouTube video below. And then don't forget to check out All Things Football. They have some really cool content, some videos featuring amazing guests as well, and I'll put their details in the description as well. But that's our show. Thanks, Jason, Mubeen, and Wasim. I'm AFO343. Stay safe, and I'll catch you guys next time.